I was actually later in life when I really got serious about it. I was always aware of, breathing and breath work. Everyone's experienced that horrible feeling of being winded or out of breath, which can evoke a real panic response. The first time I became acutely aware of breathing was training with the Gracies. And the master Rickson Gracie was a real breath master, as well as being probably the greatest expression of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, possibly Jiu-Jitsu ever. But all his brothers also were privy to a lot of the same information. Okay. And I would hear them when they're training and wrestling, breathing in this particular style. But they weren't teaching it at the time.
Okay.
And all I know is that they weren't out of breath, and I was. Part of that was the technique. I would watch Rickson and Hoyce and Hoyler literally wrestle an entire room full of people during seminars and not be out of breath. I'm thinking, how can they do that? What are they doing? And they weren't teaching it. Now they are. Rickson actually, in all his seminars now, actually does like an hour and a half to 2 hours sometimes of just breath work before you even start doing the jiu-jitsu. Well, I'm really into superheroes. There was a really cool where he's teaching Dr. Banner, the Incredible Hulk, breathing to calm down. He's hiding out from the world in the Amazon, and he meets this spiritual martial arts guru who teaches him how to breathe. That was real life. It wasn't. He was playing himself in that movie. Rickson was. Right. But the point is this: chair sitting, and the sedentary lifestyle of America and most of the industrialized countries in the world. You would have to include, Japan, certainly the UK, Germany, and so forth. People are no longer breathing diaphragmatically. A lot of people are inhaling through the mouth, breathing in the upper chest where the panic receptors are, and they're not bringing the breath down into the lower lobes of the lungs. The lower lobes of the lungs is where the calming receptors are. It keeps you calm, even in an emergency. And it's a great advantage to be able to learn to breathe into those lower lobes of the lungs all the time, even during athletic training, especially in combat. Now, the Russians have this system of martial arts. It's actually called the Sistema, where it's all based on the breath. They claim it comes from way back to the ancient Christian monks who were defending Christendom against the infidel. The Tatars, the Mongolians, all these. Russia was always constantly invaded by all these different guys. And these Christian monks developed their own martial art, very similar to the Shaolin monks. But it's interesting because the Shaolin monks use the same type of breathing. The yogis use the same type of breathing, the pranayama. You'll find it Qigong, Tai Chi, Kung Fu, Russian Sistema, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, where they learned it, I don't know, but that's when I first became aware of it. Yeah, I'm thinking that, all great minds think alike. Yeah. People came up with the same conclusions, same ideas, all over the world, similar but slightly different. So I started looking into the breathing thing a lot, and I first went to the Sistema guys, studied with up in Toronto with Vladimir Vasiliev, later with Michael Ryabko in Moscow, took a lot of workshops. I went down to Krasnodar. There was another type of system. There's more than one type of system. Alexei Alexeyevich Kadashnikov, he's like an old man. A lot of people credit him with the Russian military martial arts style. But these were different things I looked into myself as a student. I've studied yogic pranayama. Dr. Pasant Lad, who's a Ayurvedic physician in New Mexico. He also has a clinic in India somewhere. But I went to a workshop in New Mexico, and he taught me 13 different ways of breathing for different health aspects. So I've been piecing this stuff together. I ran, of course, because of my affiliation with the Russian Sistema guys, I ran into the Butyeko, Butyeko was a Russian physician who treated his patients with specific breathing. And all these things together, I kind of made the Steve Maxwell version. First we find out what kind of breather you are. Are you clavicular? Are you intercostal? Are you diaphragmatic? There's a little test you can do. You just ask people to breathe and you just observe their structure. And once you determine what kind of breather they are they inhaling through their nose or their mouth? Then you teach them then you measure how many times a minute they're breathing, There's a test called the control pause, or some people call it the BOLT test, the body oxygen level test. How long can you comfortably hold your breath on the exhale?
Yeah.
Not till you bleed from the eyes. It's not like competitive, but on the exhale, you just time yourself to see how long it is until you feel like you really want to breathe. And then you should be able to resume normal breathing, or you pushed it too hard. That tells a lot about a person's general health and their CO2 tolerance. It also tells you how well their tissues are being oxygenated. So very simple little test that people can even do at home. Once you have this information, then you can start to prescribe breathing exercises to help them improve that BOLT score, that body oxygen level test. Because if they have a short time frame between the breaths, it means that their breathing is very inefficient and they're not getting the proper oxygen. Like, we could argue all day about diets, let's say, for example, high carb, low carb, different nutrients. I mean, people, blah, blah, blah. It almost turns into fist fight sometimes with the, Mediterranean versus paleo versus Eskimo, versus vegan. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Right.
But I think we all could agree that we need calories, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Some people would even argue you don't need carbs. I think we would definitely agree that you definitely need water, but the one nutrient that people are not talking about is oxygen.